She is a distinguished scholar and a University Killian Professor in the Department of Language and Literacy Education, University of British Columbia, Canada. Her primary research interests are identity and language learning, digital storytelling, and open technology. A fellow of the Royal Society of Canada and the American Educational Research Association, she was awarded the BC 2020 Academic of the Year Award for her outstanding work on the Global Storybooks project. We are very happy and proud to now listen to Dr. Bonny Norton's talk about identity, investment, and digital storytelling for a multilingual future. Thank you so much, Bonny.
Claudia, thank you so much. What a pleasure it is to be here. And thank you to Yingling Liu for moderating this session. Thank you to Rahat Zaidi and the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak. We had such a wonderful session. I hope most people were able to make Dr. Ophelia Garcia's introductory keynote, because it connects in so many ways with the talk that I plan to give today. What I'm going to do is to share screen with you, and I am going to do a fairly short PowerPoint, because there are some wonderful images that I want to share with you that are best demonstrated actually through these pictures. And then what I hope to do is to shift to demonstrate to you the resources associated with global storybooks, because in many ways, as I say, it's a complement to the issues and challenges and possibilities that Dr. Garcia raised in her opening talk. So I'm going to share screen. And I'm going to take you to my PowerPoint. Okay. I hope that you can all see me, and that we're going to have a wonderful journey together today. So I do have a website, everybody. You can just Google it by just typing Bonny Norton, BONNYNORTON, and that will take you to a website that has many resources that are freely available. So if we don't cover some of your questions today, please be assured that you'll be able to access many of these resources on my website. I also want to acknowledge that I am speaking from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I feel very honored to live and work on this territory as a transnational citizen myself, and I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to speak to you from this land. So my talk is on identity, investment, and digital storytelling for a multilingual future. And I will be focusing on my work with the Global Storybooks project. And because everything I do is free and open access, you can simply go to the site globalstorybooks, all one word, .net, and you should have no difficulty accessing that site. But I am, in fact, going to be looking at a number of sites that are associated with Global Storybooks, one being Storybooks Canada. I've met a number of you in one of our little wonder sessions earlier, the Indigenous Storybooks Project and the African Storybook Project. The way I'm going to introduce this is through the concept of imagined identities and open technology, because this connects to my work on identity that has been central to my work for many years. And the central question I'm going to ask is, what is the social history of global storybooks? How has it emerged locally and internationally? And how does it connect with many of the ideas that Dr. Garcia mentioned today? How, in particular, might global storybooks be useful in the promotion of multilingualism? So I'm going to begin today with an image, a very powerful image of a laptop that was made in northwestern Uganda by a community that had no electricity and running water. But they chose to utilize their local resources, the clay on their land, to build laptops and keyboards, so that when the electricity and running water and computers became central and available in their communities, they would be able to run and advance into the digital world. So for me, this captures an imagined identity of the people in this community, what the digital represents to people, children and adults and family members in that community. What are their imagined identities for the future? And this connects with my theories of identity, how a person understands his or her relationship to the world, how that relationship is structured across time and space, and how the person understands possibilities for the future. So the issue of what possibilities do we see for the future, and how does this in turn impact your identity? And as we enter the digital era, we see how important the digital is in defining our identities. I've argued that an imagined community assumes an imagined identity. I've said a learner's imagined identity and hopes for the future will affect her or his investment in the language and literacy practices of a given classroom and subsequent progress in language learning. So the issue of what we hope for the future is central to our identities. If we have a look, interestingly, at the notion of the socio-material, we see also very interesting debates in the field more broadly. We heard what Ophelia Garcia today had to say about translanguaging, but there's also a great deal of interest in the socio-material, or what is sometimes called post-humanism. And Diane Dagenet says a growing number of researchers is exploring how theories of the socio-material might help expand the discussion on identity by considering how the social is related to the material. We can look at the work of Suresh Kanagaraja, Alistair Pennycook, Colleen Toohey, and others. Scholarship in this area looks closely at processes of becoming as humans and materials merge in particular environments and affect learning. So I've been reading work on the socio-material in an attempt to better understand how we are interacting with the digital world and how this in turn impacts our identities. Let's have a look at some images here that have been central in my research. These images, pictures, were taken in Uganda, and I've worked in Uganda and other African communities for many years. You can see the investment that these students have in these technological devices. In the bottom picture, you see two students helping each other to learn. In the one corner, you can see I'm working with teachers who are very interested in entering the digital world. And what is very interesting is in the bottom corner where you see a library in a rural part of Uganda, but at the very top, you will see solar panels, and people are drawing on their resources to make access to the digital world possible. What is so interesting for me, though, is what does this mean for people's identities? So here you have an image of Henrietta, a very common image for young women doing domestic duties, in their rural environments, collecting water, for example, in these yellow containers. But if you put a camera or a digital device in the hands of a young woman, you shift her identity in relationship to the world. And here we see how Henrietta can go into a police commissioner's office and take a picture of him and be taken seriously because of the resources that Henrietta has, or her knowledge of those resources, or her access to networks of power where such resources are available. This final picture was taken in an internet cafe, and what is interesting is that these internet computers were not accessible and available to these young women until they had actually done a course and gained access to digital knowledge. And when they entered into the cafe that day, they said, everybody had to leave. Today is our day. So the idea that the digital and material resources can shift your identities is an issue that many people interested in the social material are exploring in their research. Look what Sam Andema found in his PhD research in Uganda. And he references Betty, a Ugandan school teacher, who says, I feel very powerful like a man because I'd never held a camera in my life. I've always seen only men carrying cameras and taking photos in big public functions, like maybe independence celebration, political rallies, and wedding ceremonies. But now as I move in the community taking pictures with my camera, I feel I am also very powerful like a man. I'm now a learned person. You know, and for me, this is actually a very powerful image, because Betty was always a learned person, but she sees that once she can actually hold a camera, once she can enter the digital world, she has power. And she has power within a patriarchal community where men generally have the power to influence their communities. So the questions I asked are students, not only are students motivated to learn a language, are teachers motivated to teach, but I ask, are students and teachers invested in the language and literacy practices of a given classroom and community? And to what extent is the socio-material implicated in the construction of identity and investment? People may be familiar with the distinction I make between motivation and investment, where motivation is a psychological construct and the individual is often seen as unitary and coherent, and motivation as a character trait. But investment is a sociological construct where individuals are seen as social beings with complex identities, changing across time and space, and reproduced in social interaction. What is important in constructs of investment are issues of power and how these are negotiated in local and global spaces. I've argued if learners invest in a second language, they will acquire a wider range of symbolic and material resources, which will increase their cultural capital and social power. And by symbolic resources, we're concerned with language, education, friendship, and digital literacy. And material resources, capital, real estate, money, but also digital resources. What does this mean for your shifting identities and your investments in learning? I've worked with Ron Darvin on developing these ideas in a model of investment in applied linguistics, published in the Annual Review of Applied Linguistics in 2015. We ask, what does it mean to claim the right to speak, given the way power operates materially and symbolically in the digital era? So although I've worked a great deal with investment and identity, in my recent work, I've been seeking to better understand capital and ideology and their relationship to investment and identity. So by capital, we're looking at wealth, property, and income. And by cultural capital, what are your educational credentials, your knowledge of cultural forms, your knowledge of digital literacy, and your connections to networks of power, as we found with Henrietta. But even as we think of Betty, the school teacher, what are the dominant ways of thinking that organize and stabilize societies while simultaneously determining modes of inclusion and exclusion. So Betty was a highly learned person, but she felt she had very little power in her society until she walked around and could take pictures with a camera. So the ideological practices of the society link very directly with the capital that we have and the identities that we claim. So there we see again, shifting images of Betty. And our hope is that she will see herself as a learned person, in a sense, whether or not she carries that camera, whether or not she is a man or a woman. This is what got me involved in the African Storybook Project and the power of open technology. By open technology, I talk about technology that is freely available to people all over the world. And the African Storybook Project began with funding from Comic Relief in the UK, and it was developed by an organization called Sadie in South Africa. Here I have a picture with Tessa Welch, the project director, as we launched the African Storybook in 2013 in South Africa. The African Storybook has open access stories and pictures for enjoyment in the languages of Africa, for children's literacy, enjoyment, and imagination. We have over 200 languages, nearly 2,000 storybooks, and over 6,000 translations. But because we did this in the African context, I worked with the team at UBC to see whether we could repurpose these free stories for the global community, which also helps to democratize knowledge flows between the global South and the global North. And we began by developing Storybooks Canada. And again, you can simply just type out storybookscanada.ca on your cell phones, and you will gain access to these resources. I've worked with a remarkable team at UBC who have helped to develop the Indigenous Storybooks Project. Sarah Davidson leads that. Liam Doherty has been a very important technical advisor. Asma Afreen helping with translations. Shanklau, who is Monica Shanklauer, working in the African context, and Ingrid in the community. Working with the team to actually democratize knowledge flows in the wider community. So what we have is Storybooks Canada, which is a free open educational resource that promotes literacy and language learning in homes, schools, and communities. It makes 40 stories from the African Storybook available with text and audio in English, French, and the most widely spoken immigrant and refugee languages of Canada. We are also developing Indigenous storybooks and global storybooks. On the Global Storybooks portal, which I'm going to demonstrate to you, we have now 50 sites across 5 continents with resources available in multiple languages throughout the world. And we also have Indigenous Storybooks Canada that has stories available in the Indigenous languages of Canada. So what I want to do now is I want to take you to these sites. And I'm going to begin by showing you the Global Storybooks Project. So here we have the Global Storybooks Project, as I said, globalstorybooks.net. And you'll see here that we have many stories. That's Claudia, you'll see we have one that's Storybooks Deutschland. Hope you'll go and check that out. And we have sites, across 5 continents. So let me take you to the Storybooks Canada site, because that is the site that has been most fully developed. And I'm hoping to be able to show you, in a sense, how you can use these sites for translanguaging purposes, in much the same way that Ophelia Garcia was discussing today. Look at these. So we've chosen 40 stories from the African Storybook, and these have different levels. So, and they all have universal appeals. Stories about children, about soccer, about animals, about moving from one country to another. And they come then in different levels. I can show you the levels here. You can change the level from simple levels 1 to level 5. And in Storybooks Canada, we have on the download menu here, all these languages are available in both audio and print. So I'm going to show you how the audio works, and I'm going to show you how we can toggle using these stories. But I'm going to begin here with I like to read, and I'm going to just show you here. I'm going to just show you how the audio works.
I like to read. Who can I read to?
Now we can also toggle. There we have the English, and we can toggle to French. And so this is the use of parallel text, as Rahat Zaidi's work also demonstrates, is very helpful for people learning another language. And I'm going to take you up to show you the many languages. We can check, we can work with Mandarin, for example. So I can play this story in Mandarin. I'll just play it very briefly for you. Let's see, I can take you through this.
我喜欢看书。我喜欢看书。我可以念给谁听呢？小妹妹正在熟睡。我可以念给谁听呢？
I'm just going to stop
妈
there.
妈和奶奶正在忙。我可以念给谁听呢？
Okay, I can stop there, and I can just show you, for those who don't speak Mandarin, you can get the English version and you can get the French version. And as Ophelia was saying, you know, we're using, of course, the resources that children bring as they learn another language. We try to access and leverage the many languages that children bring to the classroom. What we also have, and I can perhaps what I'll do is go to a more advanced story. Let's perhaps we can have a look at Mogozwe, and let's take you to Mogozwe. This is a lovely story about a homeless boy in Kenya. And what I want to show you here is that we have download options. Now, the interesting thing, and this really taps into Ophelia Garcia's notion of utilizing the resources that children bring. You can download a monolingual version of the story, a regular PDF version, and you'll have the image and you'll also have the text. But you can also download a wordless PDF so that you can have an image, but children can write their own stories. And there could be some wonderful opportunities to translanguage, to draw on a number of different resources to actually write, for children to write their own stories. Alternatively, if children are struggling to write, still learning, they could, of course, we could download an imageless PDF so that children have a story and they can draw their own pictures. So you can see the multiple ways that children can actually access, draw on the knowledge that they bring, the resources that they bring in order to make meaning. You can also, here we have download a bilingual PDF. I'm going to pull this up here. So that here we have an example of an English-French. Here we have an example of the story that's available in English, but the story that is also available in French. So we have, again, freely available stories. And in fact, I hope you can see this image over here. You can easily print out stories. This is Hen and Eagle, for example, over here. And you can see the story. You can print them out, you know, at very little cost. So I'm going to take you back. Let me see let me see the site over here. And I want to just go back to, I'm going to escape from that site. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I'm going to take you to and demonstrate other features of those sites. But I want to actually give you the opportunity to ask me questions if people are interested. And then I can actually share those sites once more and show you other features of those sites. But I thought I would take the opportunity to provide some time for comments before I return to the sites. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to Dr. Norton for now. So please, could you either type your questions into the chat or actually raise your hand or maybe so that we can unmute you. Well, so there's the first question. Can you see that, Bonny? In the bilingual books, can they be printed with any of the available languages?
Yes, yes, the bilingual books can be printed with, all you would do in the Storybooks Canada site is to identify the language that you're interested. It could be French, Chinese, Italian, Polish, Portuguese, and you press on that site, and then you pull that up, and then you'll have the toggle feature between English and that particular language, or French and that language. So all the languages are available on the Storybooks Canada site, and you can produce those bilingual books on that site.
Well, perfect. Thank you. Are there any further questions? Yeah, there is. Is it possible to view the bilingual text side by side?
Can you view them? They are available on the one is underneath the other. So I'm not sure that you can actually put it side by side, because remember, in the bilingual books, you've got images as well. Mm-hmm. So you want to use those images because the images enable you to make meaning. We're also very interested in being able to draw on those images for meaning making. So you've got to be combining images as well as text. And the text, at the moment, the text is available, the one underneath the other. It may be that there are ways in which one could work the software to actually do them side by side, but I'm sure that wouldn't be impossible.
I actually have a question, if I may ask one.
Sure.
Actually, is this a dynamic corpus, and who can contribute to this storybook corpus? Is it growing dynamically?
Okay, the focus of the corpus is that we are interested in increasing the languages that we have available, because our most important interest is in multilingualism. So we're using 40 stories as a basis for that development. And for example, we've just developed Ukrainian as another language. And of course, we always, as we develop partnerships with people in different parts of the world, we increase. Now, if people are interested in developing their own stories, which is quite possible, then you would be able to download all our software. The software is all available and freely, and you could download all the software, develop your own site, and develop your own stories. So that is something that people find, very helpful if they have the resources available. It does take, a great deal of time and energy to do that. So many people begin with the stories that we have, and then, for example, we've got a Storybooks Mexico site, and now we actually are developing a site for indigenous languages in Mexico. So we are, but that's obviously in partnership with other groups as well. But that is possible through the free software. Yeah.
There is actually a few more questions.
Yes, I can.
Could you please name the site once more?
Okay, so the Global Storybooks Net, there are two key sites that are helpful to get to where you want to go. I can actually type it out here. So it's Global globalstorybooks.net. Here is the one. And then the other one is storybookscanada.ca is the other. So, so from globalstorybooks.net, you can get to these 50 sites that we have, you know, in many different parts of the world. That's the easiest way to get those. But to get to Storybooks Canada, you'll find that those are the most well-developed because we have, because we've been working so hard on that particular site. So that's very easy to get to, and you'll find many of the languages that that we've translated are available on the Storybooks Canada site.
There was another question, how these books have been leveled.
Yeah, so what we've done is that there are 5 levels for the stories, and the levels are determined basically by the length of the story. So the short stories are at level 1, and the longer stories are at level 5. So the level 1 stories go up to maybe about maybe 15, 20 words per page, and then the much more advanced you'll see are much longer stories. So it's a function of the length of stories.
And can the teacher create a class list for the level?
Can the teacher create a class list so the teacher can see students' progress and log in and know what level they're at? What the teachers can do is, in fact, what I'd like to do here, do you mind if I actually share screen again? Because I want to take you to the teacher site.
Okay.
But this might be a good time to do that. Let me see here to take you to these. I want to take you back to the sorry about this. Let me see. I'm going to take you down here, and I have to get back to my Storybooks Canada site over here. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to the Storybooks Canada site. And what we see here is a link for teachers. So what we've done with this, with Storybooks Canada is we've aligned the stories to the BC curriculum, but you can certainly do that as well with other curricula that you have, you know, across Canada or other parts of the world. So that, for example, I like to read, or counting animals connects with math, or feelings connects with physical and health education. And so we've got level 1 stories, level 2, level 3, level 4. But we've also identified high-low stories. So these are high interest, low vocabulary. So you'll find that older children, you know, youth who are 14, 15 may not want to read children's stories. So we've identified a series of stories where children 6 to 14 years old would be interested in these stories. And they, as I say, they're high-low, high interest, low vocabulary. So there we have Hair, and Disway Soccer Star, The Day I Left Home for the City, Honey Guides, Revenge, and so forth. And what we also show is the many ways in which students teach. There's a list here of the ways in which students teachers can use these stories in the classroom here to create posters or dioramas, to print out stories with text only, to print out illustrations, to create puppet shows, and so forth. We've also got here in our About section, we've got resources that are available, and we've got many emails, many papers that we've published that are freely available. You can read those, what stories, what research has been done, and you can scroll down. You'll see there's also a piece by Rahat Zaidi on dual language book reading and digital stories for African children. But we also have a number of videos that show you identity in the Global Storybooks Project, the website, the Indigenous Storybooks site. So check all those out. And this might also be helpful for teachers. I'm going to take you to the source site over here. And down here, we can see that you can look at downloads and reuse. So here we can also, what we've done is for each of the levels on the site, we have word lists. So that, for example, if we look at the site, look at the animals, you can download all the story, all the a word list, and the question becomes, do children know the meanings of those words? And so this is a lovely little way. Is it a word I know? Is it a new word? And what does that mean? So we have these word lists for all the stories, and we have those also in all the languages. So in fact, if you're learning Arabic, for example, you would be able to go to one of the Arabic sites, and there you would be able to say words I know, new words, words in the story. So we've done that for all the languages on the site. And we also have, I'm going to take you back to an audio. So here we have closed tests as well. And let's have a look at the different, let's say, look at Anansi and Wisdom here. So we can begin. And so what we have over here, children can listen to this site, over here, and they can download it. And I'm just going to play it over here.
Long, long ago, people didn't know anything. They didn't know how to plant crops, or how to weave cloth, or how to make iron tools. The god Nyame, up in the sky, had all the wisdom of the world. He kept it safe in a clay pot.
Okay, so what you can do there is that you can listen to that story, and you can also, let's see, download it for your purposes, and you can choose a word here. So a child is listening to the full sentence, and then they have to decide what is the word that is missing. Here, you can choose your word: packed, post, prepared, pointed, plant. So you can see children can use these on their own, and teachers can use these as a little closed audio test. And we do have these for all the languages. So that, let's look at another language. Let's look at French, for example. And here you'll see that story is available also in French, and children have to choose the word and fill that word in as well. So we have tried to develop, I'm going to just go back to the site over here, and you can learn a little bit more about the site. Our team, there's a frequently asked questions, learn about the research that we're doing. And there is something for those people. I would like to show you, in fact, the Indigenous Storybooks site, because I haven't had a chance to share that with you, because the same principle operates for Indigenous storybooks, but we're using little Cree books, and we've got a number of stories available. And these are available also in Plains Cree, Swampy Cree, Old Masset, Skidegate, and also many other Indigenous languages. The one thing I'd like to perhaps I can conclude on, I'd like to go back to Global Storybooks, because one of the things that Dr. Garcia mentioned is that children come to school with languages that are perhaps not available in the school context. So if you look at our Storybooks Haiti, for example, we've got Haitian Creole as one of the languages, as well as Standard French. So we understand that Haitian Creole is the language that is spoken, most commonly by children in the Haitian context, but they can also learn, have access to Standard French, which is something that Dr. Garcia was encouraging. Want to learn, I think she talked about translingual spaces. So if we pull up a story, let's pull up a different story for us, just for fun. Let's pull up A Very Tall Man. That's always a kind of fun story. So here we have the story here, and we have that story in French, but we can also toggle to Haitian Creole as well. And so what we're interested in is recognizing what languages children speak at home, but at the same time give access to the standard language as well. And this is also true, for example, we've got a similar we've got a similar access in Jamaica with Jamaican Creole, and in Mauritius with Mauritian Creole. So I'm going to stop sharing here. So I wanted to just show the many different features of the site, and because I very much hope people will go and experiment, with the site, look at the languages that are available, what languages might be missing on those sites, because we do have a translation app, and you can very easily translate. You can develop translations for languages that are not already available. So are there other, I think we have a few more minutes, right, Claudia? Do we?
Yes, actually we're pretty much at the end now, but you can of course conclude, and then we still have maybe space for a few questions, maybe 3 more questions.
Okay, so I'm happy to, my conclusion is that we recognize, as Dr. Garcia mentioned, that children come with multiple resources. So what we're trying to do is make it possible practically to access the resources that children have and that families have, because children can also take these resources home, and parents can work with their children as they use these resources. And even if a parent is not literate in a language, they can listen to the language, because we've got all these stories available. So parents may not be literate in French, but they can hear it. So we see family literacy as being a very important part of the project, because you can use these, at school, at home, and in community libraries. And we can access the many different resources, many different languages that children have, and they can experiment through the development of their own stories, and we've made it available to do so in our download option. So I think I'm going to, I can finish with that and ask if are there any questions? I think we were due to go till 10:50, were we? So I think we've got another 5 minutes for questions, Claudia.
Yes, and somebody just mentioned that she or he's so sad that she or he entered late, but I think this is being taped, and I guess there will be an access to this webinar after the conference, most likely, because as I see, I think it's being taped, so hopefully we can see this again. And there is a question about one participant. For example, if obviously there was a problem getting access to the indigenous stories, but I guess maybe they just have to retry, right?
Yes, it's very easy. It's all available. You just go straight to, you can begin by just looking at the Indigenous Storybooks Canada site, go to Indigenous Storybooks, and there should be absolutely no difficulty. Just we have a limited number of Indigenous languages, but these are very easily available. I didn't have time to demonstrate all those to you. Just email me, by the way, bonny.norton@ubc.ca. I would be certainly very happy to respond to any questions and show you how to access the site. But also do go and have a look at the videos. I showed you the videos on the Storybooks Canada site, because those show you how to access the sites and how to navigate them. So do check those out as well.
I really would like to say that this is so amazing, the work that you've been doing and still are doing. And the only worry I have that now your system might collapse because all the participants will try it out right away. And there will be so much access to your website. It's so excellent. And I think I speak for all of us listening to you today. This is amazing work, and it's wonderful, and you need to continue doing it. I also wanted to say, from a perspective of language awareness, I see an additional perspective. I think in a multilingual society, it's also a wonderful tool for in the EFL or ESL or any kind of language learning classroom, for children to maybe listen to languages they have never listened to. and to develop an awareness for the different scripts and maybe recognize scripts. So on the recognition level, to recognize which language is spoken and which script is there. It's a wonderful tool as well.
Actually, Claudia, I'm so pleased you mentioned that, because that was one of the many points I was hoping to be able to make, is the notion of language awareness.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Garcia said that, you know, she said she was called a stupid Cuban child, right? So when children start realizing what other children, multilingual children can do, it's quite humbling. Yeah. Because suddenly you see Mandarin and you see, oh my goodness, this child, you know, not only speaks Mandarin, but can write Mandarin. Not only does it raise awareness about different languages, which is very important, but it also shifts relations of power between students, because yes. It's not only the English speakers who have power. It's not only, you know, the French speakers who have power. It's people, all children who come with knowledge and the ability to speak and to write and to share with others what they know. And for me, that this is one of the most powerful features of the site, is it makes children, moves them from being monolingual to being multilingual as they learn other languages and as they begin to appreciate what strength other children have, or what strength multilingual children have. So I think it can be used to not only democratize relations of power between global North and global South, but also between, you know, monolingual children and multilingual children, and how we can actually connect them in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and raise their interest so that the monolingual children have the grand desire to actually become multilingual.
Exactly. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Bonny, and thank you to the audience also for your inspiring feedback. And I think we'll have a little break now and see you again.
Okay. Thank you, Claudia, for introducing me and for keeping the conversation going, and Yingling for helping with the moderation. And thank you to the audience. I'm going to be around certainly the rest of the day, as well as, of course, hopefully for many years, and can continue the conversation in other formats.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
And thank you to Yingling. And maybe all of you might want to try out the wonderful Wonder platform now to meet people and chat there.
Yeah, I'm going into that Wonder room now. Yeah. And so perhaps I'll see some of you there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.